Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Oklahoma confirmed its first case of highly pathogenic avian influenza in a commercial flock this past week. To learn more about the situation, we turn to Dr. Rosslyn Biggs, our OSU Extension veterinarian and beef cattle specialist.
Anytime we have a disease identified in a flock or a herd, we're in those initial steps right now, and so they've identified highly pathogenic avian influenza, and with that, any of those affected birds have been depopulated. With that comes a control zone around that location, and there's additional testing of any other poultry locations, both commercial as well as backyard, domestic type birds that would be privately owned, and additional testing in that control zone, and then typically there's a surveillance zone that extends past that to make sure that are we dealing with this virus just in one location, or do we have it in multiple locations? There's also movement restrictions and quarantines in that control zone of poultry themselves as well as poultry products in general, to make sure that if in fact we do have it beyond the one premises, that we're not extending it or sending it somewhere else.
What's kind of the time frame to do the testing and kind of see if it is spread farther than the one location identified?
Both the industry as well as Oklahoma Department of Ag in conjunction with USDA have activated their avian influenza emergency plans. They practice for these type of events, and so it is really immediate. There are laboratories both in Oklahoma. Our Oklahoma Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory is on point, as well as their counterparts in Arkansas, in getting testing run as soon as they can receive it from these locations.
This time of year, the risk for avian influenza in small and large flocks can be higher, right?
Absolutely. We worry about avian influenza, in particular highly pathogenic avian influenza, year round. But with this time of year, with the changes and the movement of migratory waterfowl, it's really an enhanced risk. And so we want to make sure that all of our flocks, whether they're large or small operations, have improved, stepped up their biosecurity, particularly in light of this announcement. But also if we have individuals that are hunting migratory waterfowl, so think ducks, geese, that kind of thing, we want to make sure that there are appropriate precautions, that we're not bringing this virus, which is oftentimes found and doesn't necessarily impact our migratory waterfowl, that they're not bringing it back and potentially exposing domestic poultry at their households, for instance.
Let's talk about what symptoms may look like, or what do I need to look out for in terms of my own flock?
Right. When it comes to highly pathogenic avian influenza, it's important to remember that with very rare exclusion, it's going to cause death, and very sudden death in our birds. There is not a readily available vaccine for this virus, and so in addition to sudden death, we can see sneezing and coughing, we can see nasal discharge, there can be diarrhea, weak, lethargic birds that really don't want to eat. There can also be misshapen eggs. All of those things can be introductory type signs. But first and foremost, in many cases, it will be a flock that is relatively normal one day, and then there is significant deaths the next day.
And it is the responsibility of the livestock owner, the bird owner, to report that if that happens. How does that work?
Absolutely. One of the key things is if we have bird owners that suspect, in any way suspect, we want those bird owners to report and ask for assistance in additional diagnostics. The easiest way to do that can be to call the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture at their line that is available, their phone line, and or contact their private veterinarian. As a veterinarian, I have a responsibility if I suspect highly pathogenic avian influenza frankly of any kind, to report that because it is a highly contagious and really impactful disease to our birds.
Now, the Department of Ag and USDA are the lead agencies on this, I guess is the way to say that. But Extension is also helping and has resources. What does that look like?
Our extension group has put together a number of informational resources that are readily available online. We encourage bird owners to be prepared in advance, but particularly when it comes to biosecurity, we have great online course that folks may want to take a look at, and then we also have a really great fact sheet that can outline those biosecurity practices that if for some reason a flock owner is not already doing these things, they really have got to implement those immediately.
Another question a lot of times people have is, what about when I want to eat chicken and eggs, which are obviously in just about everyone's home?
It's a big part of the diet at my house, and so when it comes to any poultry as well as eggs, we want to cook those to the appropriate temperatures that we regularly would. It's important to note that any of the infected birds would not enter the food chain, first and foremost, but that this virus is inactivated by those temperatures that we would normally cook our poultry and our eggs to.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Biggs. And for a link to the resources that Dr. Biggs mentioned, the fact sheets, as well as the online extension class, just go to sunup.okstate.edu. And now for a look at the potential economic impacts of the situation, here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare and Dr. Derrell Peel.
It's that time in the show to check in on the livestock markets with our livestock marketing specialist, Dr. Derrell Peel. And Derrell, as we heard from Rosslyn earlier in the show, high-path avian influenza was detected in some poultry operations in Oklahoma. So what are the implications for that discovery?
Well, obviously it's an animal health issue right now, so the authorities are working to contain it and monitor for the disease and all of those activities. And it's a developing situation at this point, pretty fluid. From a market standpoint, the important thing about this probably is the fact that this is the first time in Oklahoma that we've had HPAI in a commercial operation. So there may be some trade implications to this. I think we have to wait and see kind of how the situation develops. Again, it's just a little bit too early to tell, but there are potentially more implications from this one than some of the earlier detections.
And to add on top of that stress, the USDA released that there was a new World screwworm that was detected in southern Mexico.
Yeah, so screwworm was an issue that was a bad disease many years ago in the U.S. It was eradicated in the 1960s in the U.S. and Mexico later. And for many years, the U.S. has worked with Mexican and Central American authorities to control screwworm, to keep it below Panama, really. It's endemic in South America. But it has moved through Central America in recent years, and just right before Thanksgiving, the USDA announced that Mexican authorities had found a cow near the Guatemala border with screwworm. So that resulted in an immediate closure of the border to live cattle imports from Mexico as an initial step.
And I got to imagine the impacts of that are going to be definitely felt.
Yeah, so it likely means that we won't see any more cattle imports from Mexico for the rest of the year. It's probably a temporary situation in that USDA is working with the Mexican authorities to develop a protocol to get at least parts of the border reopened, but that probably won't happen until we get into January. So, so it's going to take some time. There's some additional steps that will have to be taken to ensure that we don't see, obviously, this pest reintroduced into the U.S.
How will that affect feeder cattle prices at all?
Well, because we're suspending imports, we're probably going to get a couple of 100,000 head less cattle here at the end of the year than we would have that would have normally been imported from Mexico. So that supports the tight supplies we have in the U.S. It will have some, it'll be in the market, but probably not in a way that we can isolate. In other words, I don't think we'll be able to look back at the prices and say, oh, this blip was due to screwworm, but it certainly is adding some additional support to an already high market that we have in the U.S.
And this will probably be the last time you see it to our annual year-end wrap-up show. So just a couple more weeks left into the year. Are there any things that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
You know, these markets are ending the year very strong. We've seen feeder cattle prices increase basically through the fourth quarter of the year. You know, again, and that's a reflection just of generally of the tight supplies that we have in the U.S. So we're ending the year on a strong note, continuing to see the situation that we've been monitoring for many months now continue to develop as we end up the year.
All righty, thanks, Derrell. Dr. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
We want your feedback. The annual SUNUP viewer survey is underway, and your input is important. What do you like about the show? What topics do you think we should cover in the future? And what would you like to see more or less of on SUNUP? All ideas are welcomed. The survey runs throughout December and will only take about 5 minutes of your time. Just scan the QR code on your screen or find the link on the SUNUP website. Thank you for watching, and thank you in advance for your feedback.
Good morning, everyone. This is State Climatologist Gary McManus with your Mesonet Weather Report. Now, we've journeyed into December. That was quite a November we had. We had the most tornadoes on record, a preliminary count of 31. The old record was 12 from 1958, so we blew that record out of the water. We also had the wettest November on record by more than 1.5 inches. So we certainly got rid of some drought, but that weather came with some cost, of course. Now, let's get to that new drought monitor map and see where we're at. A much better looking drought monitor map than what we've seen over the last few months. Now, we've started seeing these changes over the last couple of weeks, but we've really ended up with a really nice map, at least for most of the state. We still have some of those areas of moderate to severe drought down in southeast Oklahoma and then up in north central and northeastern Oklahoma. A few areas of abnormally dry, but that at least doesn't signify areas going into drought this time. It's areas possibly coming out of drought. We can see those changes in the drought monitor just through the month of November when we had all that rain and all these drought impacts starting to ease quite a bit. We do see some 2, 3, 4 class improvements in the drought monitor. So we take those severe and extreme drought situations, take those down to no drought at all. That's a 3 to 4 class improvement. So improvement over the entire state. Out in the Panhandle and those white areas, there was no improvement, but those are also areas where there was no drought, so there was nothing to improve. So certainly a great looking change map over the last 4 weeks as well. Now let's take a look at that November rainfall map. Look at all those great numbers. And we had some flooding, that's the unfortunate part, but this definitely got rid of a lot of our drought woes that we've seen building since the middle of summer. So lots of 8, 9, 10 inch amounts, even as much as 11 inches in parts of northeastern Oklahoma. Now, we did have those areas down across southeast Oklahoma with 3 to 4 inches of rainfall, also up in north central Oklahoma and east central Oklahoma. So those are areas that where that drought still holding on just a little bit. The departure from normal rainfall map for November shows lots of 4, 5, 6 inch surplus amounts, 7, 8 inch amounts in localized areas. Even out there in the Panhandle and down in southeast Oklahoma, where they had those 3 to 4 inch amounts, those are still above normal. The Panhandle well above normal, just a little bit above normal in southeast Oklahoma, and of course that's where that severe drought still exists. Now, there were some calls from the National Drought Monitor author to improve a little bit more. I asked for that not to happen, and this will show you why. This is the consecutive days with less than 1/10 of an inch of rainfall from the Oklahoma Mesonet, and we're now up to 15 days, so we're well over 2 weeks by the time this airs without a good rainfall across the state. So here we are with another dry spell building across the state of Oklahoma. Hopefully this ends soon, because we don't want to go right back into drought as we go through the winter months. But you know, thank goodness for that rainfall in November. We would certainly be hurting due to this latest dry spell. Finally, the U.S. monthly drought outlook from the Climate Prediction Center for December. We do see those areas where drought currently exists in the state. Those are expected to improve or even be completely removed by the end of December. That would certainly be good news. So we've gotten rid of a lot of drought, at least a lot of the impacts. We do have another building dry spell. At least it's not a lot warmer than normal than what it has been over the last few months. Hopefully that'll keep the drought at bay for a little while longer. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're here now with Dr. John Michael Riley. So John Michael, give us an update on the crop markets. What's going on right now?
Well, I always hate to be the bearer of bad news. It seems like I've always kind of come in with that since I started visiting with you all, but that's kind of been the case over the past couple of weeks since we last visited. Markets, for the most part, in terms of wheat, corn, soybeans, cotton as well, all of those are down just a little bit. Nothing really major, but down just a little bit, largely due to some exuberation, I guess you might say, as a result of some recent weather, just getting some moisture in the soil, not just here in Oklahoma, but across, most of our major growing areas. And I think that's just provided a little bit of damper news to prices, because that should mean that the crop conditions for current wheat, and then also thinking forward to spring and summer crops for next year, might be a little bit better and more productive than anticipated prior to these rains.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what's going on with the planting with wheat and maybe some harvest of the summer crops.
Sure, absolutely. So looking at wheat plantings, we're 95% completed here in Oklahoma. Made some really good improvements there over the past couple of weeks, 97% across the U.S. Emergence, 89% in the U.S., 80% of Oklahoma wheat has emerged. Again, that's really significant improvements from what we were thinking it was going to be and where we've been just a couple of weeks ago. In terms of the condition of the crop, it too is mostly, on par where we were at last time we talked. We're about 16% poor, very poor here in Oklahoma, 48% of good and excellent. So that's a vast improvement, but that's really where we've been for the past couple of weeks. So that's put a little bit of pressure on prices. Futures market, looking at about $5.50 right now. That's down about 25 cents from the last time we talked. And so, again, the improvements in the conditions is really what's driving that. Cotton, 65% harvested here in Oklahoma. That's compared to normally we're about 77%. So behind pace a little bit. Some of the recent rains are probably playing a role there, but we're kind of making up some ground as we can. Those prices are down about 4 cents. We've been seeing the dollar. The U.S. dollar has been strengthening, which usually makes our exports a little bit more expensive. That usually a lot of our cotton is exported, so that puts a little bit of a pressure on cotton prices when that dollar strengthens. And then looking at beans and corn, bean prices have fallen below $10 on the futures market, so down about 30 cents since we last visited. And then corn prices down about 5 to 8 cents since we last talked.
So obviously we're feeling a little bit of a chill in the air right now. Do you have any advice for producers going into the winter months?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a great time, as we've kind of got the summer crops in the bins, if you will, and the wheat crop is emerging and kind of starting to look really nice. I think that's a good time to sharpen the pencils and really focus on the things that our producers can control, and those usually are cost and getting those budgets as up to date and as correct as possible. Trimming costs where costs can be trimmed, since we are in a low market kind of cycle right now. Trimming costs as much as you can without necessarily doing long-term harm. And then also continuing to kind of think about, as we start putting our tax forms together, what can we do to make sure that we're on the right pace there, consulting with our tax accountants and whatnot. And also, do what we can with marketings right now in terms of pricing. Probably not the most ideal time to be pricing, but it's still something that probably needs to be taken into consideration. What type of risk management is best for each individual operation? It's hard to really get too specific in that because everybody is so different. But I think this is a good time to have those conversations with, your family members, your consultants, your bankers, to make sure that all of those ducks are in a row.
Yeah, of course. And so around this time of year, we normally go into kind of a winter lull. Is that happening this year as well?
Absolutely. We're in that holiday period, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, where markets are really ones where the slightest bit of news could possibly, make things explode one way or the other, or the slightest bit of news could just go unnoticed. So it's one of those times where traders are kind of in and out, and as a result, markets are a bit wild and crazy at times because of just that holiday happenstance.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John Michael. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Do you ever wonder if you're feeding your cattle too much or maybe not enough? Get some answers from the Woods County OSU Extension ag educator at 2 upcoming feeder calibration clinics at the Tacoma Farmers Co-op in Freedom and Waynoka on December 11th and 12th. The Freedom Clinic is 9 a.m. to noon on December 11th, and the Waynoka Clinic is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on December 12th. Clinics are come and go, free of charge, and food will be provided. For more information, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is just a reminder to monitor our cows' nutritional requirements as we slip into the winter months here. A lot of different cow-calf operations as you look ahead. Determine when that beginning of calving season is going to be. Think about where your cows are at right now in terms of their production cycle. We know that in every production cycle through the course of a year, cows typically pick up weight during the dry season when they're not nursing a calf. Those nutritional requirements really spike as we get into the first 90 days of lactation after they calve. And as we think ahead to when the beginning of our calving season is going to be, we want to stay on target, have those cows at about a body condition score 5 to 6. About a 5.5 would be ideal. If we're looking at bred heifers, probably closer to that 6 is where we would like to be, so that they've got the energy reserves to draw upon once that lactation begins and that big spike in nutrition basically starts. And so typically, what do we think about in terms of cow nutrition? Well, if the cows are adequate in vitamins and minerals and they got ample supplies of water, two big nutritional requirements for cows are crude protein and energy. I always talk about energy on a total digestible nutrients or TDN basis. If we take a 1,300 pound dry cow, the middle third of pregnancy, she needs a little over 1.6 pounds of crude protein a day and close to 11.5 pounds of TDN or energy per day. As that cow transitions into the final third of pregnancy to accommodate for the extra growth of that fetus that she's got inside of her, both those things go up about 10 to 20%. When it really spikes is once she goes into lactation, and there it really becomes dependent on her ability to give milk, and we're going to close to double both those energy and protein requirements just based on the level of milk that that cow is capable of giving. So the three things to keep in mind: what dictates how much energy and protein your cows need, their mature weight, how much milk they give, and that stage of the production cycle that they're in. So plan ahead, be ready for that big spike in nutritional requirements that cows are going to hit once they calve and actually go into lactation. Monitor body condition scores now so that those cows are dialed in and about where you want them at the beginning of calving season. I hope this helps, and thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
Finally today, SUNUP's Curtis Hare hits the road to Garfield County to see that there's really no age limit when it comes to getting fit.
OSU Extension offices are a great place if you need assistance. Whether it's questions about soil samples or help around the ranch or farm, they'll have you covered. But at the Garfield County Extension office in Enid, well, they have a program that requires a tiny bit of heavy lifting to attend.
10. This was class 11 of a series of 16 called Stay Strong, Stay Healthy. So today we practiced.
Joy Rhodes is the OSU Extension Family and Consumer Sciences educator in Garfield County and leads the program here. She says the exercise program is geared to the 55 and up age group, which was definitely needed in the community.
All right. Well, we basically have an older population. There are other things going on in Garfield County. There's a lot of different things that do go on, and this was a little bit different in that it was building strength and using weights.
First up on the workout list is a light warm-up to get the blood flowing.
You really can't do two at once.
Then it's on to a few sets to work on a little hand-eye coordination.
Okay, now go back and forth, right to left to right, like, yeah.
And now it's time to throw a little weight around.
8, down to 9.
It's really good. It's really good for your body.
Today is the third session for Jovita Lang, and though it's only the third one, she says she's already noticing a difference.
I mean, I walk all the time. I try to do my 10,000 steps a day, but for upper body strength, we work on that a lot, and I needed that really bad, and so that's the reason I'm coming.
And it may be like you've always worked and then you retired and you kind of sit around and not do anything, and so this is a way to get to going. Actually, we've had some people that are fairly new to town and join just to get to meet more people.
Just a fun activity.
It's nice meeting other people.
Yeah, sitting around with other women. Everybody's so funny, nice.
Yeah, the interactions are nice.
Like Jovita, Sally, Kathy, and Karen have noticed the physical gains from these sessions. But though exercise is what brought them here, it's building relationships rather than building muscle that keeps them coming back.
I like it. We try to tell everybody, and I try to bring a bunch of people in, you should try this, you should try this.
We kind of hold each other accountable,
Yeah, a
I
little
think.
bit.
Oh, you're going to go today.
Who's stronger?
Oh,
No.
I have no idea. Well, I've met some new people here that haven't been here before, and some that have been here before, and that's a real plus. They're really nice. All these ladies are really nice, and so we do have lots of fun.
It's a good thing. They have accountability because they check on each other. Camaraderie, or we start slow. When we start, we learn the actual movement without weights, and then we add weights, and then we increase our repetitions. So it's not like we just start doing 10 repetitions, and so it's just to make it a little bit, I'll continue doing it. It does take a lot of time, but it's a good thing, and I do enjoy it, and it's good for me to do it too.
And by the looks of things, she'll be in no shortage of participants.
Well, it makes you feel really good when you're my age and you go see people in the nursing home my age and you're still walking, you're still upright, you're still moving, and the more you move, the better off you are and the more healthy you are. And so all the way around, it's a good thing.
In Garfield County, I'm Curtis Hare.
And then down, 2, 3.
To learn about healthy living programs in your community, just contact your local county OSU Extension office. And that'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website and also stream us anytime at youtube.com/SUNUPTV. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.